Ah, Rome, the city of marble temples, bustling forums, and endless political ambition. Meet Steve, our favorite non-specific Roman citizen. Steve is back, and this time he's got bigger plans. Ambition burns in his heart, and Rome's Cursus Honorum is calling. If you don't remember Steve, he is our ever-aspiring Roman citizen eager to make a name for himself in the bustling, chaotic world of Roman politics. But climbing the ladder of power in Rome isn't as simple as just showing up with a toga and a speech. No, it's a carefully structured series of political and military offices known as the Cursus Honorum, literally the Curse of Honors. It's the career path every ambitious Roman must follow if they want to go from an ordinary citizen to the heights of power in the Senate. Of course, like everything in Rome, it's not a one-size-fits-all deal. There's the path for plebeians, like Steve, hard-working but born without the right family connections, and there's the fast track for patricians, the aristocratic elite, whose ancestors practically invented politics. While plebeians have to work their way up with grit and luck, patricians can count on family influence, money, and some well-placed bribes to smooth the ride. But don't think it's going to be easy, even if you're a patrician. Rome's political system is riddled with corruption, backstabbing, and a fair share of outright bribery. Winning an election often means throwing extravagant games or buying off voters with promises of grain. And even if Steve gets in, he'll have to navigate the dangerous waters of Roman politics, where friendships are fleeting and enemies are forever. Steve's first step on the Cursus Honorum is the office of Questor, and at the ripe age of 30, or 28 for patricians, he is finally eligible to run. The Questor is essentially Rome's accountant, responsible for handling public finances, managing the state treasury, and overseeing financial matters in the provinces. Sounds prestigious, right? Well, in reality, it's mostly a tedious slog through mountains of records, grain accounts, and tax reports. But here's the catch. There's plenty of opportunity to get creative with the numbers. And many questors found ways to misplace a few denarii here and there for a personal gain. After all, what's a little financial mischief when everyone else is doing it, and a little favor done now can pay dividends in the future? But let's talk specifics. Let's take an example. Marcus Junius Brutus, the future assassin of Julius Caesar. As questor in Cyprus, he turned a tidy profit by charging sky-high interest rates on loans, proving that even a future defender of the Republic knew how to play the game. Or consider Cicero, who took his role very seriously and avoided corruption, earning him the admiration of the public, but likely a few enemies among his colleagues. He paid for that, but we'll talk about it another time. Despite the dull paperwork, securing the office of Questor is crucial. Why? Because it's the golden ticket to the Roman Senate. Once elected, Steve will have a guaranteed seat in the Senate for life. Unless, of course, he gets caught embezzling. So, while the job itself might not be glamorous, it's an essential stepping stone on the path to greater things. Being done with number crunching, Steve now faces the next challenge, the aedileship. At age 36, he is ready to step up, though, of course, for patricians, this role is entirely optional. Why? Because being an aedile is essentially a glorified event planner with an eye-watering budget, and most of that budget comes straight from Steve's own pockets. The job involves overseeing public festival, maintaining Rome's infrastructure, and ensuring the city's grain supply stays steady. In theory, this is a vital position for the well-being of the city, but in practice, it's an expensive popularity contest. Ambitious politicians like Julius Caesar use the aedileship as a launchpad for future success by throwing lavish games and public spectacles that left the crowds cheering and his wallet completely empty. Caesar, for instance, went all in, hosting gladiatorial matches so extravagant that people were still talking about them years later. Steve, like many others, will have to weigh these ambitions against the very real possibility of going bankrupt, just to secure favor with the masses. There are also two types of aedileships: plebeian aedils, only open to commoners, and curule aedils, available to both plebeians and patricians. The latter position comes with more prestige and perks, like the right to sit in an ivory chair and wear the fancy toga with a purple trim. But at the end of the day, both roles require deep pockets and a knack for spectacle. Let's take a little intermission to talk about elections. How did elections work in ancient Rome? Citizens voted in assemblies based on their social class. Candidates would campaign by gaining favor through public speeches, bribes, and alliances, all while facing fierce competition. The voting process itself was public, and while theoretically democratic, the wealthy often had a stronger influence. After the election, the results were announced in public ceremony. But winning wasn't just about votes, it was about securing the right patrons and making the right promises to the right people. And of course, votes. Now Steve has spent too much and, with his purse lighter, is ready for the next step on the Cursus Honorum, which would be the praetor. The praetorship is really not a cushy position. Sure, it sounds prestigious, but in reality it's filled with responsibilities. As a praetor, Steve gets to judge high-profile cases, command armies even, and govern provinces. But the reality, well, not that glamorous. Imagine endless lawsuits without computers, backstabbing politicians without a police force, and the constant temptation of corrupting influences in those sweet, money-making provincial assignments. Ah, the money you could make there. Some praetors even start seeing their new post as a chance to fill their pockets after emptying them as an aedile, skimming off the top while managing far-off territories. But Steve is not here to sit in a courtroom. He knows this role is a stepping stone to something bigger. Being a praetor, after all, is essentially an audition for the top spot, the consul. If he can command an army and show his skills in the field, he'll be more than just another politician. A successful military campaign or a well-managed province could boost Steve's career and secure his place in the Senate's inner circle. And don't forget, Steve knows a good trial performance can make or break him. It's not just about following the law, it's about how he plays the game. The courtroom is like the stage of a Roman drama, and Steve needs to win over the crowd. Just another way to become big in Rome, other than, well, slaughtering other people or stealing their stuff. A legal victory as a lawyer or a judge, especially one that makes waves around Rome, can push him closer to the consulship. After all, in Rome, it's not just about what you know, but how well you can sell it. And at long last, after a terrifyingly hard campaign and, well, lots of bribes, Steve has made it. He has reached the highest elected office in Rome, consul. But before he gets too comfortable, let's set the scene. The consulship might sound like a dream job, but it comes with its own set of nightmares. For starters, Rome doesn't have one consul, it has two. And these two top dogs have to rule together, which means lots of political maneuvering and, well, backstabbing. Steve has 1 year to leave his mark on the beautiful marble of the Senate, but it's gonna be hard. Steve's new role, well, it's all about balancing Senate demands, public opinion, the expectation of powerful allies, but the biggest hurdle might be the relationship with his co-consul. History is filled with famous consuls who turned their time in office into a dramatic political showdown. Cicero, he is remembered for his bold moves and his clashes with rival politicians. Marius can't even remember how many people he had killed. And well, let's not talk about Sylla. And while these were the dramatic ones, it was always bickering. I'm gonna go invade that, you are gonna go pacify that, I'm gonna take the part with the money, you're gonna take the part with the responsibility. It's a mess. Consuls were granted imperium, which meant that they had absolute power in military and judicial matters. They were 1-year rulers of the Mediterranean, a glorious position to have unless a more powerful, respected, and influential politician didn't already hold sway over everything. Like, well, it happened multiple times, especially at the end of the Republic. So it's kind of a coin toss between being the real top dog in Rome and being a mid-level politician that we are not even going to remember when we talk about the story of the ascendance of Augustus. Now here is where things get interesting. Steve could take a detour from the usual power climb and dive into the political firestorm known as the Tribune of the Plebs, a sidestep for a plebeian. This position is reserved exclusively for the common people, but don't be fooled, the Tribune holds serious firepower, especially with the Sacred Veto. A game changer. Steve, with this, can block any law he thinks goes against the interest of the plebs. And in a society like Rome, that's a weapon more dangerous than a legion of soldiers. But here's the catch. It's not all heroic speeches and saving the day for the people. The reality? Steve could quickly become a pawn in a much larger political game. The Senate and the elite aren't exactly thrilled about having a tribune who can thwart their plans. If Steve's not careful, he'll find himself used, manipulated, and potentially even assassinated like the Gracchi brothers. A whole story that we have talked about in the Eternal City. Maybe take a look at it if you got a minute. Now there's another high office that we need to talk about, the office of the censor. The role is all about maintaining public morality and making sure everyone in Rome knows their place. As censor, Steve will have the power to decide who's respectable enough to be a part of the Senate, punish his political enemies, and with a stroke of a pen, eliminate people from the roles if they have stepped out of line. Of course, that's the sexy part. The non-sexy part is, well, overseeing public contracts like construction projects and public games, but let's face it, Steve's more interested in using this power to play the political game. He has had a long career, he is full of enemies, and he is in debt. Heavily in debt. Now, there is a surefire way to solve this problem. When your consulship ends, after all, you get sent to be a proconsul, a province governor, managing vast territories of the empire borders. It's a prestigious role offering the chance to command armies and rake in wealth. But it is also a position fraught with danger, as power in the provinces can make you a pretty juicy target. Now, as Steve reflects on his legendary rise through the ranks of Roman politics, from humble tribune to powerful censor, he starts to wonder if it was all just a dream. Now, back in his modest insula, the weight of power seems far away. He once chased titles, fame, and influence, but now, amidst the quiet of everyday life, Steve realizes that maybe this is where he truly belongs. No Senate meetings, no backstabbing rivals, just peace, simplicity, and the freedom to live on his own terms. It turns out the biggest prize was always the life he left behind. Wait, his patron is calling? He needs an election rigged now? Steve's gonna die if he doesn't? Well, Run, Steve, run!